What's up, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of Expert Mentors Live, episode 181. Got my man and newly appointed COO of Sphere Rocket, Mr. Joel Perso. What's up, brother?
How you doing?
Doing good, man.
Episode 181. I can't believe that. That's wild.
It is wild. I know you've been on with us a few times, and you know, we were able to connect last week at Kitchen Table and really dove in to the organizational dynamics and structure inside of things. And, you know, I just wanted to carry the conversation. We had so many questions, so much feedback, and, you know, something that typically in the residential real estate space, a lot of agents really get wrong. And so I know understanding, you know, what it takes to put the best team on the field in order for us to accomplish the things that we're wanting to accomplish. And there's really nobody better to have this conversation with than you. And so, you know, I'd love for you to kind of dive in, give a little background. You know, Honey Badger Nation is maybe doubled since the last time you were on. So being able to, you know, share a little bit of your background, a little bit of your story, I think would give some context to everybody listening in.
Yeah, you bet. So I started in real estate in 2012. My very first job was as a transaction coordinator for a small sales team. So it was me and a bunch of salespeople. I was the only salesperson, non-high I. So I started transaction coordination, but I really quickly started absorbing lots of responsibilities. So operations, finance, marketing, and I'm managing all the processes for the team. As that team grew, I kind of grew with it and ended up starting an independent brokerage with my original team leader. We became business partners. We grew that team to 400 transactions, just over 2 million in GCI, about 30 agents on the team. And I kept in that operational role the whole time. So building things that can scale or rebuilding them when they break, and kind of found what I really love about business, the complexities and the nuances of how to structure, grow, and build a business. I just kind of fell in love with those pieces. So from there, I moved into running operations for a national media and photography company around real estate called VRX Media. So we built the teams, again, the structures, the processes, helped that company grow from just under 1 million to over 6 million. We were 2 times on the Inc. 5000 lists, over 150 people in the organization, and 50 markets nationwide. And then for the last 2.5 weeks, I've been the chief operating officer for Sphere Rocket, which is a virtual workforce placement company geared towards real estate agents right now. So helping real estate agents create leverage, like you said, put the best team on the floor, and doing that virtually.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I, you know, had Justin was at Kitchen Table with us in December, and I was just listening to all of his problems, and I'm like, I got your solution. I was like, I know exactly what you need. And we were able to set that conversation up in Nashville. And I know you're tremendous asset, and I know it's a heck of an opportunity to be there. So man, you know, I think where I would love for us to kind of dive in is really creating some awareness, because most agents are not, and most people in general, they're not problem aware. And, you know, the challenge of asking somebody, hey, you know, current situation, to, hey, where it is that you want to go, is can be a little bit of a little daunting for some, because most people are like, I'm where I'm at, right? How's life? It sucks. Things are shitty. Well, where do you want to go? What's the big future? What's the destination? Any place but here,
Yeah.
right? I don't ever want to feel like this again. Well, what's the problem? Everything's the problem. So you got to be careful at the questions you're asking, because a lot of agents and a lot of people are just head down in the grind, in the frame, can't see the picture, so far deep, right in front of the trees. They're not able to, or don't understand how to, disengage and kind of get their bearings of where they're at. So one of the exercises that we always like to run through, and I would love your take on this, just because you've grown a large brokerage, as well as the same fundamentals to take a company from $1 million to $6 million and continuing to grow. And you don't get that way without system, structure, process. You just thinking through team wise, team growth. You just don't get there. So where, for me, it's always, hey, let's take inventory of what you're really doing, and really the activity inventory process, something that you have to do, I feel, all the time.
Yeah.
And even in your conversation and mine, it's always like, hey, what's on your plate? Hey, what needs to get off? What's slowing you down? What's not allowing you to go faster? Because there's one thing that we all can agree on. Everybody that's listening to this, everybody wants to go faster. No matter how shitty life is, no matter how shitty business is, we all want to go faster. If you're slow, you want to go fast. If you're fast, you want to go faster.
Yep.
And not having the right team is one of the things that causes our business to stall and potentially fail. And so activity and just being aware of what you're doing. But from that point, Joel, where do you really start to look at to get the framework to get down to really making sure we're creating that team alignment?
Yeah, well, I'll always start. I'll always start with some of the groundwork that you have to have in place, and we've probably talked about this on every interview we've done, every episode I've been on. But it absolutely has to start with the vision, with the values, with strategy, with goals, with team, and then moving into the daily tactical. So, and what you said about moving faster is exactly why I thought of this topic of specifically about creating alignment on the team, because misalignment in the team is the number one thing that slows you down. There's a great book called Organizational Physics. One of the concepts is that the energy in your organization will always go to misalignment first. He calls it entropy, friction. The available energy in your company will always be directed first towards the misalignment, the problem, the friction, and then whatever is left over is what you have to use for your growth and moving forward. So misalignment's the number one thing that slows you down as a business. So talking framework, I think of when a team is aligned, they're pursuing the same vision,
Okay.
They're understanding the goals, they're using the company values to make decisions. And then the team has to understand how they fit in, how their strengths are contributing to those goals, to that vision, and they have to make that connection between how their work matters in the organization. So when we talk about alignment, that's what I'm talking about, is some of those big components there. And it's in a straight line, starting with vision, moving down through values and decision making, goals, and then ultimately the people. So all of those things have to be in alignment. And like we said, it's about moving faster, but it's about making better decisions, empowering people to make decisions so the leader doesn't become the bottleneck. It's about higher engagement and job satisfaction, which leads to lower retention, or higher retention, lower turnover. And then ultimately, it's more fun. I mean, I know you and I have both been in highly aligned organizations and misaligned organizations, and it is exciting to be in an organization that's aligned all the way through to the vision and the purpose. So it's a big task, but it's not as ambiguous as it sounds. There's a lot of practical stuff that we can talk about that that lead to better alignment, which leads to moving faster. And the analogy that I like best is think about rowing the boat. So if you look at an Olympic rowing team, not only are they rowing in the same direction, but they're rowing in sync.
Mm-hmm.
If one person rowing is a little bit off, it slows you down. If one person's off tempo or rowing in the wrong direction, you're misaligned, and it slows you down dramatically. So that's my favorite sort of mental picture for what alignment looks like in your business.
Right. I love that. And it's also, I think, where agents are all over the place and their shiny object syndrome is because they don't have an anchor to make decisions towards. Meaning, if I say yes to this, does this move me closer? Does this move me faster to where it is that I want to go? And, I always have to remind, agents that, hey, your whole goal of your business is to get you to freedom. And you've got to get clear on what your definition of freedom is. Yeah. And it's a math equation. It's a number. There is a number that you need to have coming in that allows you to live the life that you want to live, plus. And the plus is, you need to have that little bit of extra for additional investments, for, just some things that could pop up on your radar that, you would never be thinking about. And it's just a good, 15%. So, if you're 10, 15,000 a month is where you need to be to live that life, to where the pressure's off personally, then put 15% to that. And the other thing, I just because I was thinking about this, is that agents starve themselves their compensation. And then what they do, they don't structure it correctly in the business. And then they rob the resources of the business because they just pick and pull when they need it personally. Yeah. If they would say, okay, hey, here's where I need to be to where I don't have to worry about my mortgage payment being made. Now you remove that distraction, that thought, and it allows us to just focus on growing the business. Yeah. And instead of having to worry about how am I going to make my mortgage, how am I going to make payroll, now you just figure out how am I going to grow the business and make payroll, right? If I make payroll, then my personal shit's taken care of. It's a little mental shift, but it's a big shift when you don't have to be like, hey, personally, I'm good. As long as the business hits their targets, then I'm good. And you don't have to do, the dance both sides. So getting into true alignment, knowing where it is you want to go, those values are there, the purpose is understood, and that big goal that the company's working towards. We have our framework. So now we move into, okay, hey, Joel, I've got people. Hey, I think they're aligned. I don't know. I guess we can look at it two ways. Joel, I'm needing to bring some people on, but I failed at getting the right people, which I'm sure you've heard. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that we have to take into consideration? Because I see a lot of hesitation working with agents. They're like, man, I can't nail this hiring thing. It just doesn't, man, I just can't make it work. So what's the kind of the criteria that we need to go through to really where someone can set themselves up for success with their team?
Yeah. Two big pieces there. Equally important. One is obviously bringing new people in. What does that look like? But then also with alignment, your current people, and are you setting them up for success? Are you doing, have you done the groundwork? The vision is clear. It's being communicated regularly. Are the values a living, breathing part of your organization that are undeniable when somebody comes in? That becomes the decision filters for your organization. And then that ultimately becomes what your culture is. So your culture, your company culture is just, it's your values, how they live out and play out every day in your organization. And it's not the values that you say you have, but it's the actual values of the company. That's what generates your culture. So if there's a misalignment between what we say our values are, but what our policies, decisions, and behaviors represent, then your culture becomes that. So, before we get into hiring, what's the culture, what's the organization that you're going to be bringing these people into, and you got to do the groundwork on that. And these are things you can't delegate, right? You can't delegate the vision. That has to be your vision.
Right.
You can collaborate, but you can't delegate core values. And then what policies, what procedures, what things are you implementing that prove the values. So I'll give a couple examples quick. Most famous one's probably the Ritz-Carlton. So they're known for their service. That is one of their prime values. So they create a policy, the $2,000 rule, that any employee can spend up to $2,000 to solve a single incident, not in a year. Spend up to $2,000 to solve one problem for a client to deliver on great service without asking permission. Another great example is, and he talks about this in his book, What You Do Is Who You Are. But at Andreessen Horowitz, the venture capital firm, one of their prime values and cultural priorities is valuing the time of the entrepreneurs that they're working with. Traditional VC firm might look at their entrepreneurs as just numbers. Some of them are going to work, some of them aren't. Andreessen Horowitz wanted to prioritize and invest in their entrepreneurs. So they made a policy that you get fined $10 per minute that you're late for a meeting with one of their entrepreneurs. So the policies in place to drive the behavior that they want, and that's part of their culture. Because of that, is valuing the time of those entrepreneurs. An example that we had in our business at VRX was, it was really important to me that our team had safety and flexibility, so that they could always take care of anything outside of work first and be focused on work. So everybody on my team knew that they never had to punch a clock to go to the doctor, pick their kids up from school. And because we eliminated those pressures that they felt in their personal lives when they were on work, they were dialed in, focused, and ready to perform at a high level. And they know that they didn't have to stress about having a life too. So you can create policies that prove your values and generate your culture. So again, those are things that you can't delegate, that kind of thing. You can collaborate on those, get ideas from people, but you have to own that, especially in the beginning. And once the values are a part of every day, they live on their own, and the team protects them too. And that's one of the incredible things about an aligned organization, is it doesn't need constant monitoring, constant micromanaging. Once it's in place, it kind of lives on its own, and the team becomes protective of those values and of the culture. So those are a few of the things of, before we talk about bringing new people in, what has to be in place, or what you at least need to be working towards, is living, breathing core values that become the decision-making filters for your team. Another one, and this is true of anybody you bring on, but a huge piece is a clear definition of success. One of the biggest drivers of employee disengagement is lack of clarity around their performance. I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I don't know if I'm meeting your expectations, but I want to, because that's the kind of people you're bringing into your organization. So there has to be clear metrics, clear definitions of success for each position. People should never have to wonder if they're doing a good job or not. Right. It should be clear, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So those are a few of the groundwork pieces, but they're so critical. And if you're bringing people into a misaligned organization, all you're doing is adding complexity, which is going to slow you down even further. An example I love is Vern Harnish talks about adding you add people linearly, but you add complexity exponentially. So if the team is just you and me, John, there's two people and there's two communication channels, me to you, you to me. If we had one more person, we now have three people, but we have 6 communication channels between each of us individually, right? If you go to 4 people, now you've got 4, you increased by 33%, but now there's 24 communication channels. So if you're bringing people into an already misaligned organization, you're exploding your complexity and probably not solving any of the problems that you set out to when you made that hire.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I was definitely going to touch on the Horowitz book. What you do is who you are. That really is your culture. How you behave and how you truly behave, not what you may have on the wall, but
Yes.
how are you really behaving? Because that's who you are. If you the only standards you have, right, are the standards you enforce.
Yeah.
And that then becomes part of the culture, that you say one thing, but you allow something different.
Yeah.
And so that causes frustration, especially with A players.
Yeah.
Because A players are all about results. They come in, they're focused on hey, what do I need to do to achieve success? I want to go home. I want to know that I'm getting the results. And I want you to go home. That I'm getting the results. And so it's not something that's up for debate. It's real clear. And I think a lot of folks hire out of pain instead of hiring out of the gains that they're wanting to have. They don't even know what gains they want. They just got so much pain. They're just looking for some relief.
Right.
and so, but they haven't paused for 2 seconds to think about, where is the real pain?
Yeah.
Right. What am I treating here? And is this, the real issue? Is that the real problem? Or do we need to go to a different spot that's going to, really solve what it is that we're doing?
That makes the activity log exercise, that you shared at Kitchen Table, all the more important too, because that's going to help you get clear on your pain points. So the idea in this exercise is basically you're going to write everything down that you did in a week. And then, and you can explain this more in depth if you want, but then you're going to go through the things that you're world class at, the things that you're excellent at, things that you're competent at, and things that you're incompetent at. So you're getting a really good idea of where you're spending your time. And now how do we go about removing everything from your plate except what you are world class at and maybe what you're excellent at. And as you build this activity log, a next step that I always like to do before talking about do we need to make a hire is first looking at those activities and 3 questions. So one, is this something we can eliminate? So just straight up, do we need to be doing this in the organization? If the answer is no, let's find a way to cut that out immediately. This especially happens as the organization's growing, new people are coming in and finding out, hey, why do we do things that way? Well, maybe we do things that way for a reason that no longer exists. We just never made the change. So look for things you can eliminate first. Look for things next that you can automate. Is there a piece of technology? Is there a simple process that you've just been dragging your feet on implementing in your business? But look for some things you can automate. And then the third one is look for some things you can delegate. So maybe there's somebody on the team who can take some of those things. Maybe it's not a new position. And then lead all your people through the activity log as well. Maybe there's things they can stop doing. Maybe there's things they can automate. So doing those things first. And now we look into what's left and how do we solve that gap? Maybe that's a new hire. Maybe that's a different piece of technology. Maybe that's a coach, a project-based hire, whatever. Sure. But that's a great exercise, those 2 steps before we look at, do we need to make a hire for this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to go, is this a system or process before, or, an elimination? Just because we keep doing things doesn't mean that we should.
Right.
And so sometimes there's just stop doing,
yeah.
right?
And it might not be obvious And it might even be eliminating something that's somewhat valuable, but not in alignment with the strategy and the vision. Um, if we're really clear on developing our database and sphere of influence and generating referrals, and we got this $1,000 Zillow ad spend sitting out there, maybe we pull a deal or two from it now and then, but do we really want to be spending our time, money and energy on that?
Right.
Maybe the answer is no, but you got to go through the process to identify that. So it's not always something that's obvious, and it's not always something that's detrimental. It might just be something that, that there's not resources for. Anytime you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to make sure we're saying yes to the right things in alignment with, where we're going as a company with the vision.
Yeah. I think that's the real big thing, right? Is that, not taking the time to get clear filters in place to make better decisions. And that then, because you don't have those filters in place, you either make poor decisions or you don't make decisions at all.
Yeah.
And so this is where you get everybody, pulsing together, rowing the boat in the same direction at the same cadence, is when you know with certainty where it is you want to go. Now, it might not be real clear to you on the how, but the destination, and you're open to new advances, new technology, a key project, a key implementation, a key strategy that can help you get there faster. But you've got to be clear on that. I remember, I think it was the very first Jay Abraham event we went to. He had a gentleman there at the event named Gordon Bazar. I'll never forget his name. And it was essentially how to evaluate and buy businesses. And what he said that tends to happen, and he said the story he gave is, just imagine you're flying your plane, by yourself, and you're going to Cairo. That was his example. And you're over the desert and your plane goes down and it crashes. And the first thing we do is we look for all of the things within the plane that can allow us to have survival. And what happens is that, a lot of agents, a lot of small business owners, the plane crashes, like it does for all of us at certain times. And you have a couple options. And one option is to get everything you have and just bunker down and hope somebody's going to come save you. But what tends to happen is that you run out of supplies and you perish. But the real answer is you gather the materials and supplies you need, and you grab that compass and you grab that map, and you keep charting your direction to your destination. And that was just a great, kind of visual kind of story that has always kind of stuck with us, is that, hey, it's that whole straight line concept of, hey, we're here and we're trying to get to here. We're going to have challenges and roadblocks along the way. But if we don't know where we're at and where we're wanting to go, we get into this circular world. And that's not alignment. You can't bring anybody into your organization. They can't help you if they don't know where you're trying to go. And so then that just becomes part of your culture that, hey, we just do our thing. And we don't, we don't have a bigger future. We're really, Joel, we're in survival. And I honestly believe that, we're either growing or dying. And when you're in survival, that's not growing. And so it's just a matter of time before you run out of the resources you need. And if you don't know that known direction, and that's where, bringing and surrounding yourself with better people that are in line where we want to go can help you get there. So really, I love what you're saying here. Be clear on the vision. Be clear on the big future. Be clear on where we're trying to go. We can have that big down the road type future, but where do we need to be in 3 years?
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about this at Kitchen Table, and 3 years is a really sweet spot, because it's pretty easy for us to get our head around 3 years.
Yeah.
We're talking about 12 quarters, 13 weeks in each quarter, really drilling it down. And what is that number? What does that target need to be? And how come that's how come that's important? How come that's important to be able to have that target?
Yeah. I love the 3 year, the 3 year target too, because when I look at a lot of especially the agents that I, either brought into EXP, coached, had at the other brokerage, a lot of people, like, they lose it in the mid game, right? Like, it's easy to start. It's easy to be excited for months or years, starting a new project, a new business, a new strategy. And like you said, it's relatively easy to think big picture, long term, but from the short term to the midterm is where a lot of people lose it, I think. And it's chasing shiny objects. It's losing the strategic planning rhythm and the meeting rhythm, spending too much time in survival and not taking the time even for a couple days to get out of that, so you can clear your head and be looking down on the business. And sometimes it's just the strategic planning is the exciting, sexy part. And when you're on, month 9 of just working the plan, you got a great plan and you're working the plan. It's not always exciting. It's not always sexy, but it's that discipline to keep working the plan, keep working the strategy that really separates the people who get through that piece. So I think the 3 years a fantastic target, because it's, like you said, you can wrap your head around it. It's not too ambiguous, but if you can execute on the steps needed to hit that 3-year target, I mean, you develop all of the skills you need to hit the next 3-year target and the next one.
Yeah, for sure. And a great, 3-year challenge. If you're like, hey guys, I get that. One thing I want you to always to remember is that if you're not happy with your present situation, it's because your future is not big enough. For our present to be better, our future has to be bigger. And if we say, okay, hey, let's focus on that 3 years. So let's say, hey, here we are, it's 22. We get through 22, we get through 23. Let's just say, March 31st, 2025, you're sitting at the kitchen table with us. And, what's happened, right? Where do we want to be? Do we want to double? Do we want to triple? One of my favorite things to think about is, what if we went top to bottom? What if we took our top line revenue and that was our profit in 3 years, the top to bottom goal? And, you're like, okay, well, think about that for a second, right? Hey, we did as an agent, we did 400,000. We did 500,000 in revenue last year. Okay. So March 31st, 2025, 500,000 profit. So we take our top line to our bottom line. What are all the things for that to be true? And this is everything that we're talking about today is, if you don't get clear on the destination, you cannot get everybody in alignment. Yeah. And I think it's also the alignment, the impact, because too, we can sit here and say, Joel, I want to build a $10 million corporation, $10 million company. Okay. But do your goals personally, does your life, does the structure, does that align to the actions that's going to allow you to get to a $10 million company?
Yeah.
Because if not, then it'll never work.
Yeah.
You'll never be in alignment. And if you're not in alignment, there's no damn way you can get your team bought into that. So it has to start with you as the head of company, as the visionary of your organization, is that you've got to be really, really clear of what you're willing to commit to. And I'm not a commit and figure it out guy. I don't believe that works. Yeah. I don't believe it works. I don't believe it's sustainable. What I do believe that works is getting clear on what it is and what it means and what it's going to take, And are you willing to commit to that?
Yeah.
Right. And that's how it has to start. It has to always start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And then we have to reverse from there. That's the only way that I feel that we can get true alignment is being really clear that you know where you want to go, how come you want to get there, what's the because goal for yourself, for your circle, and for your community. And is that something you're willing to commit to?
And if you nailed it right there. And I was going to say that too, is the, the because goal. So to use that example, the $10 million organization, that's the goal, but why, right? Why? And you drill down on that. Well, because I want financial freedom. Well, why do you want that? Because, so that 5 whys exercise. But then also, is that really the goal? Is 10 million really the goal? Well, it sounds like maybe the goal is that you just need 20 grand a month coming in income. Okay. So all right, now we're a little closer. Well, it sounds like maybe the goal is really, you want $20,000 a month coming in passive income. And all of a sudden, well, maybe the $10 million organization is the wrong target. And so, the because is so critical. And if you start with that goal, and we've made this mistake, and we made the mistake at our brokerage of setting the goal, or maybe confusing the goal for the vision. We ended up setting the wrong goals and chasing the wrong things when we found out, all right, if we hit this goal, it still doesn't mean that we're, living out our purpose and accomplishing our vision. So those whys are so important. And that's another thing you can't delegate, right? You can't borrow somebody. You can borrow somebody else's processes or organizational structure or whatever, but you can't borrow somebody else's why. And if you try to, it inevitably leads you off course, because they're building theirs. Number one, maybe they don't know their why either. So you're borrowing from somebody who hasn't done the work. Number two, you don't know what their fundamental, purposes are, and why they've chosen to build the things they're building in the way that they're building. So that is the groundwork that just has to be done without a doubt. Yeah,
it does. And, not choosing something that aligns to your aspirations, your goals, or something that doesn't align to who you are at your core. It's not sustainable, because everything in life is uphill, meaning shit gets hard. And if you're not in alignment to who you are, your goals are not in alignment, and the reason that you're building your business, you're not clear on those things, you're not going to do the hard shit. You're not going to fall in love with the process. You're just not going to, because at the end of the day, that's truly not the outcome that you're after. And, I've coached, Joel, a lot of rock star agents. I've also coached a lot of agents out of the business, because this was never their dream, their goal, their aspiration. And it's about being happy and living in that zone of genius, like you had talked about in the activity inventory. What are you the best in the world at? What are you world class at? And it's only a couple things. And then what do you excel at? We have, kind of a time allocation on work that we spend 70% of our working time on the highest leveraged activities that we can produce. But what if you could live your life, 80% of your life in the happiness triad of your health, wealth, and relationships, doing what you're the best in the world at, and what you excel at? What would your life look like? And, just because you're, trying to build a, residential real estate organization doesn't mean that you should, just because you can. And so it's something to really consider, and it's okay. Like I said, it's fulfilling for me to help these individuals get clear, and then get them going down the path of where they want to be. And, Gary Vee says it all the time, right? He goes, I got billionaire friends that are the most miserable. And I got 55,000 a year, buddies that go drink beer with their buddies after work, play softball on the weekends, and they're the happiest humans on the planet.
Right.
You have to find your happiness. I think that's
and never apologize, right? If my big picture, if my thinking big is smaller, numbers wise than yours, that's okay. It's because Jay Kinder is building a 10,000 person revenue share group doesn't mean you have to too. Maybe you do, maybe you're going to, and that's great. Absolutely go for it. Right. But that again, that leads you down the wrong path. If what you want to do is have a small, highly productive and profitable team and keep it right there, great. If your vision requires you to constantly be, growing agent count, growing production, great. If you're a solo agent with a couple assistants, and you're thrilled with your income and it's has you on the path to, the freedom, whatever that number is for you, great. You have to feel, it's tricky, right? You have to feel pressured to be your best, but you can't be pressured into, taking on goals that aren't really yours.
Man. And that's the thing you said right there too. You get pressured, and, environment is stronger than willpower. And, to really be the leader that we're all capable of being is that we have to get into what it is that we want to achieve. Now, does that mean that you have to venture out there, start your own company, be head of company, do your own thing? No. I mean, shit, Joel, I mean, you just took head of operations because it aligns with who you are at your core. You see the opportunity, but you also see the impact, and it aligns. You see alignment for yourself in that opportunity. That might be helpful to give some perspective. What was your decision-making process for taking on the new venture that you're a part of?
Yeah, definitely. So VRX was at a spot where we'd really succeeded, and operationally we'd really succeeded in building an incredible team, super aligned, dialed in, great processes that we reliably forecast would scale with the business. And for me as the COO at VRX, I'm looking at 2 years potentially of growth that's going to be needed before what we had in place is really going to get stressed. We had great leaders in key positions who were prepared to build out their teams as we grew. Of course, things could change. There could be a curveball coming in, but I was looking at 2 years of largely managing what we had already built instead of building things. So that's just me personally. Like I said earlier, I fell in love with building things within a business. So coming into a company like Sphere Rocket, growing really fast, dynamic, visionary leader, great people on the team already, not enough structure, not enough process, and maybe not enough clarity on what the structure is going to look like going forward. So the project itself was really exciting. And I'm looking at a big opportunity with where I think this company can go. But I think the key here and what you're touching on is, and I think this has to be a part of the conversation when you're thinking about your big goals and your freedom, your purpose, is what are you willing to give up to get that? So I'm comfortable making less money, having a smaller upside by not having my own company. That's a trade I'm willing to make to work on a project I really like. Still a great opportunity for me. Don't get me wrong. It aligns with my financial goals for the next 10 years. But I'm willing to trade a little bit of upside for a little bit of stability and for what, I really enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis. I don't want to do sales. And if I start a new company, that's my main job in the beginning, maybe for years, is sales. I can do it, but it exhausts me, right? What I'm doing right now energizes me. So I'm willing to make that trade. I'm willing to give up some of that upside. As an entrepreneur, as an agent or team leader, you gotta be real about that too. What are you willing to give up? And if you're not willing to give up some family time in the beginning, playing less golf, living lean for a while you build it. If you're not willing to do those things, maybe this isn't the right path. Maybe it needs to be some adjustments in the vision or the big goals. Darren Hardy always talked about why entrepreneurs suck at golf. It can be all consuming in the beginning and maybe even for years, right? We always talked about a 5-year, you're going to have a new agent coming into the business. We always train them to expect 5 years of it being really difficult. 5-year mark, you've developed the skills, you're starting to get repeat business. People are viewing you as a professional, but that 5 years can be really hard. And that's why a lot of agents don't make it. Darren Hardy he talked about too, he doesn't go to movies. He has no idea what's happening in pop culture. He couldn't tell you who's on the top 40 charts this year. He doesn't pay attention to any of that because he gave up some of those things in order to pursue his big vision. So you got to be real honest with yourself, and you need to have a coach, I think, who can help you be real honest with yourself, or at the very least, people in your life who have permission to point out your blind spots.
Yeah.
And you got to start from that place of honesty. Or like you said, you just won't do the work.
Right. You won't. You just, because you'll get overwhelmed, right? And you'll become paralyzed in your actions, and because you start to second guess because you don't know what action to take.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if that action is going to move you closer to where you want to be, or you just don't know. And like you said, that's where the power of having a coach, because that coach can help us collapse time. And they're fantastic at seeing our blind spots. And so as we develop as leaders, I really believe, and had a great conversation with my brother-in-law, and he's retiring this week from Walmart, 36 years in the executive seat, responsible for billions of sales within his region. And he's all about, he has do leaders all the time. And what we were talking about, and I just kind of asked him, I said, what do you look for? What do you have? What are you looking for as leaders in that you're trying to place in? And he's like, man, he said, let me tell you. He said, if you can nail leadership and understand, within the dynamics and the alignment, he goes, what I do, he goes, I can get it done in about 30 hours a week. And he said, if you don't, you'll be spending 80 to 90. And if you're spending more time, it's because you don't have alignment. And what he said with great leaders is that great leaders are able to see the forest and they're able to see the tree. And I was like, shit, that is so, so powerful. And so if you haven't developed that skill set, that's where the power of a coach can come in, because a coach can collapse time. They can help us reveal our blind spots, right? What we reveal, we can heal. They can also provide additional resources, and they have the tools to help us get unstuck so we can move faster towards that destination. And it was just a great reminder, as leaders developing those capabilities along the way. But it has to start with making sure where you want to go, and because when I ask you, hey, you want to build that? Okay, cool. How come? What's the reasoning behind that? What's the rationale? What's the why? What's the big because goal? And so you have to be able to tap into those things for sure.
Yeah, I love that example. I think, a lot of the developing leadership skills is really can be daunting too. That was a lot of feedback even at Kitchen Table, people wanting to level up their leadership skills. But again, it's a skill that can be developed, and it doesn't have to be that intimidating. People think I need to suddenly become this inspiring, visionary, leader that people want to follow, but it's, doesn't need to be that. It's,
Nope.
again, get clear on these things, communicate the vision, communicate the values, live out the values, treat your people well, be intentional about building trust, own your mistakes, admit your mistakes.
Yeah.
Give grace for people when they're growing and they're making mistakes. It gets overcomplicated a lot, some of the fundamentals of great leadership.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always need to be quite so complicated.
Yeah. He said too, one of the traits that he looks for is common sense versus intelligence. And he said typically the best leaders, they have more common sense than they do intelligence. He said those that have a ton of intelligence but no common sense, they overcomplicate things. And it's about keeping it as simple as possible. It's not easy, but we've got to keep it simple. And that's where common sense comes in. And I was joking with you guys, right? I was like, one of my job titles, I just changed it. I'm, Chief Legacy Officer, Founder, and Head of Common Sense for our organization. And, you've got to lean back to the simple and really keep it simple, because it's easier for the team to understand so they can get into alignment. Yeah. And you're looking for people like yourself, like you had to understand what the organization and Justin and Sphere Rocket is trying to do. And does that align to what you want to do? And it's okay to borrow that, right? I think that's the big thing. People sometimes, well, that's their vision. Well, no, you can borrow others' visions. You can tap into others' visions. You can do those things. It's okay, right? Give yourself permission to, you have your vision for your life. You can align with somebody else in what you're wanting to accomplish.
Yes.
I mean, the same thing.
That doesn't mean you don't have your own vision for your life.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, sure. Exactly.
Sure. Well, fantastic, brother. I always appreciate the conversations and really, diving in on the organizational structure and dynamics of things. You getting out there and hustling sales will only get you so far. If you want to really build something on a foundation and escape, you agents that are residential real estate agents that are listening in here, if you want to escape working with buyers and sellers, you've got to figure this out. You've got to put in the systems and processes so you can do more meaningful work. That's the thing. You've got to be able to put the systems and processes so you can escape working with buyers and sellers so you can do more meaningful things. And just comes down to making a decision. Brother, I appreciate you. What is right now, if somebody, because we just touched on one little dynamic. If somebody was like, man, wanted to unpack a little bit more, go a little bit deeper with you, what's the best way to connect?
Yeah. So right now you can get me on Facebook at Joel Perso, or email me, joel@sphererocket.com. And I would love to connect anybody, jump on a call, share some materials, dive into some of the things you're all dealing with. That would be a blast for me. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Takes a team, guys. You're not going to get anywhere you want meaningful in life without making sure you're surrounding the team and building the team around you. And you said something at Kitchen Table. Let's leave them with this, right? It's hey, what does the team look like in order for you to execute on the plan within the model in pursuit of the vision? That's right things, right order. But you said something about structure, then I forget how you put it. It was like, it grabbed me, and I know it like the whole room. I saw everybody go down and start writing what it was.
Was that one, that the structure follows the strategy? Is that or are you thinking about something else?
I think that was it. I think, we've got our plan in place now. What's the structure, right? Yeah. What's the team structure have to look like?
So key. You design the team to accomplish the goal. And yeah, that's got to be top of mind always. And another thing you got to be thinking about too is why it's so important is an organization, it behaves according to its design. It doesn't behave according to its purpose. It behaves according to how it's designed. So you need to design it in a way that creates that alignment and drives that momentum forward, towards the vision. So
that's it, man. Good stuff, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for you guys tuning in. Make sure y'all give Joel lots of love. Connect with him. He's definitely a wealth of knowledge, and obviously, if you're looking to grow the team within, the dollars that you have to put the best team on the field, connect with Joel. Connect with the Sphere Rocket team. It's been a game changer for so many agents. Me personally, as Joel knows, probably one of their biggest advocates to be able to grow our business, and super excited for the future. Brother, appreciate you.
Thanks.
Awesome. See you guys.